My name is Aloan. I'm 36 years old, living alone in Seattle, and working as a deputy executive director at a financial firm. Last week, just as I had submitted the final quarterly financial report of the year, my phone rang close to midnight. On the other end was my younger sister, her voice bubbly as if she was calling to share some great news. But what she said wasn't an invitation. It was a command wrapped in the illusion of family warmth. You remember you'll be watching the kids for us during the Palm Springs trip, right? Mom already asked you. There was no small talk. No offer to join them. No one even asked if I was available. My entire family had already planned everything except for me. And my part in the family plan was just to be the babysitter. Have you ever been treated by your family like a service, not a member? If you've ever felt like you only matter when they need help, leave a comment below, hit like and subscribe to this channel so we can uncover the truth behind the family smiles. Because what happened next might make you rethink what being family really means. I hung up the call with Haley, but my hand stayed wrapped around the phone. It wasn't just her words replaying in my head, but a flood of memories breaking through, each one crashing in before I could stop it. Things I used to brush off as no big deal, now lined up like bricks stacked across my back, pressing down until I could barely breathe. I remembered being 20. It was my last year in college, just one semester from graduating, and everything was within reach. I had just been accepted into a prestigious internship program at a well-known investment firm, something every student dreamed of. Then one evening, Mom called urging me to come home. My dad, Richard, had lost a large sum of money in his first real estate investment venture with a friend. I remember that night clearly. Mom sitting at the dining table with a stack of bills piled high like textbooks. Her eyes were red, her hands tightly wrapped around a mug of cold tea. "Could you delay your semester?" she asked, voice trembling. "Just for a little while. To work and help your father cover the debt." I swallowed hard, eyes fixed on the overdue utility bill circled in red, then glanced at my older brother Logan, lounging with his legs crossed, scrolling through his phone like none of it concerned him. I nodded. Later that night, I canceled my internship and took a full-time cashier job at a suburban grocery store. No one asked if I was disappointed. No one said thank you. 6 years later, I had a stable job and bought my first car with my own savings. It wasn't fancy, but to me it was freedom. I only drove it for 4 months. Then Haley called. She had just returned from a fertility appointment, her voice breaking between sobs. "I don't have much time left," Haley said. "The treatment costs. James and I can't cover them." Before I could answer, Mom texted, "Haley's still young, she can't give up. Help her out, she's counting on you." I sold the car. That Uber ride home was cold enough to bite through my jacket, but it was nothing compared to the silence I got after sending them the money. Not a word. Not even a reply. At 30, I was promoted department head. I still remember that evening. I called home excited to share the news. Mom said, "That's great. Now that you've got some extra, can you help Logan? He wants to expand his business, but the bank won't approve a loan." I sent him close to $10,000 for a new truck. Logan texted back just 3 words, "Got it. Thanks." No congratulations. No, "How are you?" No word about repayment. I still showed up for every family event. I brought dessert. I brought gifts. I brought smiles. But in the photos, I was always on the edge of the frame, like someone who wandered into a celebration by mistake. At Haley's wedding, my name was misprinted on the invitation as Elora. Mom just laughed it off. "It's still you, isn't it?" I never protested. Whenever I showed signs of hesitation, Mom repeated the same line I once mistook as praise. "You're strong, not like the others. They're fragile. They need someone to lean on." And I became that someone. I lost count of how many times I rescheduled meetings to watch Haley's kids. How many times I got up at 3 a.m. to take Mom to the hospital because Logan was busy with construction. Sometimes I'd come back from a business trip, suitcase still in hand, and Vanessa would text, "Pete has a fever. Mom said you're free. Can you help for a day?" Some nights I'd sit in front of the mirror, removing my makeup from a tired face, wondering, if I disappeared tomorrow, would any of them come looking out of love, or just to ask who'd babysit? I used to think I chose a life without marriage or children because I loved my career. But more and more I started to wonder, was it truly my choice? Or had I been swept into a current of obligation before I ever learned what I wanted? Looking back now, the memories don't feel warm anymore. They're shadows. Moments where I buried my needs to meet someone else's, sacrifices no one ever saw as sacrifices. I used to think family was a safe place to fall. But in my family, support is just a word they used for someone who could carry everything without asking for anything. And the price of not asking is being treated like you're not even there. 2 days after that call from Haley, I stumbled upon something I don't think they ever meant for me to see. I had just sent a document to Mom over email when she accidentally replied with a Google Drive link labeled Palm Springs 65th Family Trip. Curious, I clicked. The folder was meticulously organized. Resort photos, room assignments, a task list, a full itinerary from check-in to the final night's barbecue. There was even a budget spreadsheet titled, Split Equally Alone Covered Kitchen Nanny. My heartbeat stuttered when I read that last line. Nanny? I grabbed my phone and scrolled through the family group chat from the past month. Not a single word inviting me. That's when I saw something else. Another group chat I was never added to called Family Trip, Private. Created by none other than Haley. I don't remember how long I sat in front of my screen. Just that my chest went cold, like someone had placed stones along my spine one after another. They didn't forget me. They deliberately left me out. The family planning meeting for Mom's birthday was held at Logan's house. I arrived right on time carrying a homemade apple tart like I always did. The house buzzed with laughter. Kids ran circles around the dining table. Adults toasted with wine, trading eager glances. I stepped inside like a stranger, crashing a scene everyone else had rehearsed. Haley led the charge as if she had memorized her lines. You're here. Perfect, I was just about to talk to you. She pulled me into the living room where Mom, Logan, and Vanessa were already waiting. Mom placed a hand on my knee, her smile too soft to be sincere. We've worked everything out. Everyone has a role on this trip. Logan's handling transportation. Vanessa's in charge of meals. Haley's managing the schedule. I nodded slowly. And me? Haley beamed. You'll take care of the kids. Specifically, Ethan and Lily. Mine. Logan's twins. Max and Ellie. And Henry, Vanessa's little one. 6 in total. But you're great with them, right? I froze. 6 kids. All under 8 years old. I didn't even have time to respond before Mom chimed in, her voice light as air. This is how you show love to your family. That sentence sliced through my thoughts like a cold blade. I stared at Mom, searching for any hint of empathy in her eyes. There was none. Just expectation. As if my consent was a given. I thought I'd be going with everyone, I said, quiet but firm. I contributed money, requested a full week off, cleared my calendar. Logan shrugged. You can come. But someone needs to stay back with the kids. We can't exactly take all of them ziplining or water sliding. And you're the only one without kids or a husband tagging along, Haley added, like she was reading from a script she'd practiced too many times. I took a deep breath. Don't you think you should have asked me first? Or at least, given me a heads up? Vanessa let out a soft laugh. Oh, come on, haven't you always helped the family without question? It's not a big deal. I looked around at each person in the room. All of them wore strangely calm expressions, as if this was completely normal, as if I wasn't an independent person but just a convenience they could schedule however they wanted. I'm not a babysitter, I said quietly. No one sees you as a babysitter, Mom quickly replied, her voice a bit strained. You're someone we trust. The kids love you alone. You'll do great like always. I wanted to say, I have feelings too. I want to be included, not just left on the sidelines. But the words got stuck in my throat. They went right back to discussing safe sun exposure for kids, nap schedules, meal plans, and snack arrangements, as if I'd already agreed. As if everything had been decided and all that was left was for me to show up and fall in line. I sat there in the middle of a familiar circle, feeling more out of place than ever. No one asked if I wanted to help. No one wondered why I stayed silent. And in that moment, the only thing I felt was that I no longer truly belonged in what they called a family. That evening, after coming back from the gathering, I sat alone in my living room, holding a cup of ginger tea that had already gone cold. The lights were on, but they couldn't warm the growing emptiness in my chest. I was used to being asked for help, but never had it been this blatant, this deliberate. I opened my laptop, typed a few keywords, and contacted a reputable childcare agency that provided licensed, experienced nannies. They immediately sent me a list of vetted professionals, some with Montessori backgrounds. I read through the profiles carefully. My heart calmed a little. There was still a way to resolve this peacefully. I picked the 2 most suitable candidates, made notes, and got ready to share the information with the family. The next morning, I set up a Zoom call with Mom, Haley, Logan, and Vanessa. I started with the gentlest tone I could manage. I've been thinking about yesterday, and I understand you need someone to watch the kids. But if this is a family trip, I'd like to actually be a part of it too. So I found 2 certified professional childcare providers with full background checks. I'll cover the entire cost. No one else needs to contribute. I hoped they'd at least consider it. But the moment I finished, the screen exploded with backlash. Haley frowned. You want to let strangers stay with my kids? How could you be so irresponsible? Logan crossed his arms and shook his head like I'd just said the dumbest thing ever. You have money but no idea how to use it. Won't spend when it matters, then waste it when it doesn't. Vanessa scoffed. You're just scared to spend time with the kids. Making excuses so you can wiggle out. Grown woman who doesn't know how to put family before herself. Before I could respond, Mom's voice cut through, sharper than usual. Aloan, you really think strangers will take care of the kids better than you? Have you forgotten who you are? Your family. This is your responsibility. I clenched my hands on my lap, feeling the chill in my knuckles. I never thought I'd have to justify something as simple as wanting to be treated fairly. I'm not refusing to help, I said, keeping my voice steady. I just think responsibilities should be shared. Or at the very least, someone should ask me before making plans. Haley jumped in. You're always like this. Watching the kids for a few days and you act like it's some huge sacrifice. Mom's brows drew together, her face starting to redden. If you don't want to help, then don't come home anymore. That line landed like a stone dropped into my chest. No one in the call spoke up. No one looked surprised. As if my mother hadn't just threatened her own daughter with emotional exile. As if it were nothing out of the ordinary. I ended the call a few seconds later. I didn't cry. But something inside me cracked. Definitively. I sat in silence for a long while before opening my phone to find a new message from Mom sent right after the call. You live too far from this family, in every sense. If you can't do this for me, maybe you don't belong here anymore. I set the phone down, my mind spinning. The words were clear. No ambiguity. They didn't need me as a person. They needed someone who followed orders on time, no questions asked. Someone obedient, self-sacrificing, and smiling even when treated like a tool. I stood up and walked out to the balcony. The sky was dark. A fine mist began to fall. Light as silk but cold as needles. Looking toward the horizon, I realized. My compliance had never earned love. It had only emboldened them step by step until there was nothing left for myself. The cost of always being the one who never says no is that someday you're no longer seen as a person. Just an option. A name on a task list. Nothing more. Nothing less. The next morning I woke early even though I hadn't slept much. My apartment was quiet. No voices, no children, no pressure to smile at anyone. I poured myself a black coffee, sat by the large window overlooking a misty Seattle street, and felt an unexpected calm. I didn't rush to fix things, didn't text apologies, didn't scramble to make everyone comfortable. I just sat there, breathing slowly, thinking about something I never thought I'd actually do. I opened my laptop and found an old email from almost 3 years ago. Subject line: Co-ownership agreement, Marla Aloan Jennings. At the time, Mom's old house had been falling apart after a seasonal storm, and she couldn't afford the repairs. Logan had just bought a new car, Haley was raising young kids, and no one else could help. I had covered nearly $70,000 to fix the roof, replace all plumbing, upgrade the electrical, and remodel the kitchen. I hadn't asked for repayment, but on my lawyer's advice, we'd drawn up a written agreement. If Mom didn't repay within 12 months, I'd become a legal co-owner. She never paid. I called Louise, my personal attorney, the one who drafted the contract. She remembered instantly. I thought you'd never use that agreement, I said slowly, as if checking my own resolve. But you're fully within your rights, Louise replied. And if they violated the co-use terms without notifying the co-owner, you can temporarily suspend all property activity. Want me to draft the notice? I looked at the window reflecting my face. Firmer now, maybe a little pale but no longer weak. Please send me an official notice. Keep it concise, lawful and clear. Less than 3 hours later, Louise emailed me the notice to suspend use of the property at 1227 Summerhill Lane, citing breach of terms, unauthorized use and deviation from agreed purpose between co-owners. I signed it digitally, printed one copy for the mailbox at Mom's house, and emailed another to the whole family, Haley, Logan and Vanessa included. Subject line: temporary suspension of property use, effective immediately. I wrote nothing else. No explanation. No reasons. No apology. I just sent it, closed my laptop, made another cup of coffee and put on some classical music. The cello notes filled the room, warm and slow, like a blanket on a cold fall morning. The phone started buzzing 5 minutes later. First Haley, then Mom, then Vanessa. I didn't answer. The messages poured in one after another in all sorts of tones, from surprise to fury, from pleading to threats. Eloan, what is this? What are you doing? Don't make things worse over something so small. You're tearing the family apart. I sat still. I didn't respond. My mind wasn't spinning anymore. On the contrary, everything felt sharply clear. I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't hurt anyone. I'd simply exercised the rights they always assumed I'd never dare to use. By late afternoon, Mom called again. I let it ring all the way through. Her final message said just 7 words. I didn't think you would do this. I read that line over and over, unable to tell whether she was sad, angry, or disappointed. But one thing was crystal clear. She was right. They didn't think I'd ever do something like this. Because for 36 years, I had done nothing but carry the weight and endure. They were used to Eloan who stayed quiet, Eloan who always cooperated, Eloan who never said no. But the Eloan standing here today wasn't the Eloan from 10 years ago. Not even from 3 years ago. And certainly not from last week. I wasn't declaring war. I was setting boundaries. Wiggly. Purry. In a way they had no choice but to notice, because it wasn't about emotions anymore, it was about ownership. It wasn't kindness anymore, it was law. And when a woman who's been treated like silent foundation finally speaks up, the people standing on that foundation have to learn to listen. I closed my laptop, stood up and started packing a suitcase. Not one for babysitting duties. A suitcase for my own trip. Because if they had decided to leave me out of the family vacation, then maybe it was time I planned a vacation where I was truly free. No forced schedules. No crying toddlers. No burden on my shoulders just because I don't have a husband or kids, so I must be more available. I was going. But not to Palm Springs. And not with them. I stepped off the plane into sunny Honolulu that afternoon, the breeze carrying salt and warmth that kissed my skin. Laughter and chatter floated from the tourists ahead, and each step I took away from that aircraft felt like leaving a former life behind. I breathed in deeply, letting go of the familiar sounds of obligations, demanding calls and texts loaded with guilt. In that moment, I wasn't anyone's daughter. I wasn't anyone's sister. I wasn't an unpaid babysitter. I was just Eloan, a 36-year-old woman, stepping into the very first vacation of her life, one she chose for herself. The resort I booked sat beside a secluded beach, the sand stretching out like it had never been touched. My room opened directly onto the ocean, where each morning the sun rose from the horizon, flooding everything with soft, radiant light. I spent the first day beneath the palms, listening to waves crash and seabirds cry, flipping through pages of a book before dozing off without realizing it. The next morning, as I was having breakfast in the ground floor restaurant, a warm, deep voice came from the table beside me. Eloan, is that you? I looked up and found a tall, sun-kissed man standing just a few feet away, smiling with surprise and delight. Jared. I said aloud, barely believing it. Jared had been one of my college classmates. One of the few people back then who saw me as a person, not just the quiet girl with straight A's. He'd started in engineering but switched to education. He was also the one who invited me to join a mentoring group for freshman women, but I'd been too overwhelmed juggling school and work to even dream about anything outside graduating on time. We sat down together, our coffee cooling as the conversation warmed up. Jared was now the executive director of a nonprofit helping adult women return to college, especially in STEM fields. He told me about their scholarship programs, about single moms learning to code, about women in their 40s typing their first lines of Python. "We're expanding our advisory board," Jared said as he drained his second cup. "I need someone who understands the market, understands finance, but also understands what it feels like to always come last. And when I saw you here, I immediately thought of you." I laughed, half joking. "Did you just compliment me by saying I know what it feels like to come last?" Jared didn't laugh. He looked at me for a long moment. "I'm not joking. Aloan, back in school you were the one holding the team together. Quietly, without fuss. You see things most people in finance don't. Empathy. And you deserve a seat where your voice has real weight." I was quiet for a beat. How long had it been since someone looked at me that way? Not with expectations. Not with preset roles. Just recognition. "Let me think about it," I said, my voice soft but steady. We walked the beach afterward. Not much talking. Just two people who'd once shared a stretch of life, now meeting again at an unexpected crossroads. He told me about his wife, a woman who worked in environmental design, and their two kids who were staying with grandma. I shared a little about my job, about Seattle, but steered clear of family. Under the golden sunset reflecting on the ocean, I walked through waves and wind beside someone who didn't define me by what I could do for others. Back in my room that night, I opened the email Jared had just sent, his formal invitation. In the attached note he wrote, "We're not looking for perfect. Just someone who truly wants to change things for women pushed to the margins. And I believe you're that person." I read that line again and again, heart slowing. Not because of the offer, but because I realized something clearly. Maybe I was finally stepping out of the mold my family had locked me in. And on the other side of resistance, there wasn't emptiness. There were doors I'd never even had the chance to open. Till now. I didn't turn my phone back on until the last morning in Hawaii, when the sound of waves had become more familiar than my own breath. The screen lit up immediately, red alerts everywhere. 214 unread messages, 52 missed calls, 18 unheard voicemails. I sat still holding the pineapple juice from breakfast, staring at the numbers blinking like a storm surge waiting to hit. The first message was from Haley. "Where are you?" "I'm outside your place. It's freezing and the kids are crying nonstop." Then from Logan, "We brought Max and Ellie like planned. Is anyone home?" Vanessa's message was shorter. "Henry keeps asking why Auntie Aloan isn't opening the door." I scrolled through. The text from that morning flooded in like static. "Why aren't you answering? This isn't funny anymore. If Mom's blood pressure spikes over this, it's on you. We can't believe you'd abandon the family like this." A voicemail from Mom popped up. I put in my earbuds and hit play. "Where are you, Aloan? I can't believe you'd do this. The whole family is in chaos because of you. The kids are crying in front of the house. Aren't you ashamed? After all the years you helped, why would you choose now to turn your back on us?" Her voice trembled and sharpened. I heard Haley screaming in the background, kids crying, car doors slamming. The sound pierced my ears but didn't make it into my chest anymore. I didn't feel guilt, only exhaustion. The flight back to Seattle passed quietly. I never reopened my phone. On the plane, I kept my eyes closed the whole way, not to sleep, but to hold on to the last bit of peace before walking into the storm I knew was waiting. By late afternoon, when I stepped into my building's lobby, the cold wind hitting my face was a clear reminder that the vacation was truly over. I rode the elevator to the 5th floor, unlocked my door and sighed in relief. Everything was still in place. Warm lights. Clean air. No voices. I hadn't even taken off my shoes when the pounding on the door started. I didn't need to check the peephole to know who it was. "Hirun." My mother's voice sliced through the hallway, sharp and rising with each syllable. "Open this door. I know you're in there." I opened the door and faced my mother, her face flushed, hands clenched in her coat pockets. Haley stood just behind her, red-eyed, holding Ethan who was screaming. Logan climbed the stairs, barely hiding his fury. "Are you out of your mind?" he growled. "What do you think you're doing?" Mom didn't wait. She walked straight into my apartment without being asked. "You ruined the whole family vacation. No one could enjoy a thing. Everyone was scrambling because you disappeared like some irresponsible teenager." Haley put Ethan on the couch, her voice full of tears. "I had to stay in the hotel with 3 kids because James left on day 2. Vanessa lost it because Henry cried for Auntie Aloan every night. Logan slammed his hand on the table. You know what? Mom had to call the doctor because her blood pressure spiked. Are you happy now? I stood there, not resisting, not backing away, letting them say everything they needed to say. I looked around my own apartment, the place they used to enter as if it were theirs by right, never once asking if I was tired or even okay. Vanessa came in last, panting like she had run. You're so selfish. Family isn't where people get to do whatever they want. You abandoned 6 children without a word. If Mom sues you for damaging her health, I'll testify. I looked at each face in front of me. Faces that once felt familiar now looked like masks. For a moment, I didn't recognize any of them. You all assigned my responsibilities without asking me. You made plans, used my money, my time, and just expected I'd say yes, like I always do. Mom shot up from her seat, face flushed. Because you always do. You always help and never complain. Of course we were shocked when you suddenly changed. I didn't change, I answered slowly. I just stopped letting others define my worth by how much I'm willing to carry. The room went completely silent for a few seconds. Then Haley broke down. You don't think about anyone else. The kids love you, they trust you. You disappearing like that made them feel abandoned. I looked at my sister, my voice softening. I love your children. But I'm not anyone's burden to bear. I'm not a stand-in. I'm not a customer service rep who answers every request. You all hurt for 1 week. I carried that weight for decades. Logan gave a bitter laugh, shrugging. So this is you walking away from responsibility? I met his eyes. No. This is me choosing to reclaim myself. I walked over to the low wooden cabinet by the dining table where I kept a separate folder for important documents. As Mom, Haley, Logan, and Vanessa kept blaming, interrogating, and guilt-tripping me in every tone imaginable, I didn't answer a single word. I simply opened the drawer and pulled out a set of documents I had prepared before leaving Seattle. I laid them down on the table one by one, slowly in front of them. No words. No explanation. No defense. Just facts, signatures, stamps, numbers. This is the co-ownership agreement for the house on Summerhill Lane, I said evenly, not angry, not loud. Signed by Mom. Verified by a lawyer, notarized. I turned the page. Here are the bank statements for 3 transfers I made, totaling $68,400, for the new roof, plumbing replacements, and full electrical upgrades in 2020. I moved to the final sheet. This is the property usage record, clearly stating, if either party uses the home for personal purposes without consent from the other party has the right to revoke usage. No one said a word. I gently pushed the folder toward Mom. You said I've brought shame to the family. But I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped letting everyone treat me like a free service. Mom's face turned pale. Her hands trembled as she held one of the papers, eyes locked on the printed words. You quietly prepared all of this, to go against your own mother? I shook my head, eyes steady on hers. I'm not going against you. I'm protecting myself. For all these years I never said no. Whenever the family needed something, I showed up. But no one ever asked if I was okay. Haley sobbed. You're tearing the whole family apart just because you wouldn't babysit a few kids? I turned to her, my eyes no longer sad, just tired. It's not about a few kids, Haley. It's about how you all decided what to do with my time, money, energy, and worth without ever asking. Logan grabbed the folder, flipping through the pages. How long have you been keeping track of all this? Every dollar? Every favor? I paused before responding. I didn't keep track. But each of those moments took a piece of my youth, my chances, and my identity. You all saw it as normal. Vanessa folded her arms, voice sharp. You've got money, status, no husband or kids, you can help. Why act like you've been so deeply wounded? I looked her straight in the eyes. Because of that exact belief, that anyone without a spouse or children doesn't have a personal life, doesn't need rest, and doesn't have the right to say no. That's what kept me silent for so long. And today I stop. Mom set the paper down, pulled out a handkerchief to wipe her eyes, her voice cracked and bitter. You're an ungrateful daughter. After all the years I raised you, now you turn your back on me over a few documents. I stepped closer, my voice gentle but unwavering. You didn't lose me today. You never really had me. You had an ATM that walked and talked. Someone who always said yes, whenever you needed something, but no one ever asked what she needed. Mom looked up as if stunned by my words. But I didn't look away. I had spent most of my life avoiding that look, an exhausting mix of expectation, control, and disappointment. Now I let it fall fully on me without flinching. The room fell still. Outside, the wind brushed against the window, tugging at the white curtain beside it. I could feel the tension in everyone's posture, like vines that had grown around me for years were finally being pulled away piece by piece. I turned my back, walked over to the cabinet, and gently returned the folder to its place. I didn't need their signatures. I didn't expect an apology. I just needed them to know I was no longer a shadow they could control, no longer the forgotten face behind family photos, no longer the daughter who folded at a single plea. I sat down, looking at them like I was seeing them clearly, each person, each connection stripped of all assumptions. And I waited, not for them to explain but to choose. Face the truth or keep playing the same old script. But I wasn't playing the old role anymore. I didn't get a single phone call after that night. Not a message. Not a check-in. Just silence. Thick, deliberate silence. Not the kind that brings peace, but the kind that announces war without saying a word. In the days that followed, I saw my name everywhere, but not in text. In vague, pointed social media posts. Family stops being family when people only think about themselves. Some folks think money buys love, but they'll never understand the value of sacrifice. I won't apologize for expecting relatives to prioritize family over a paycheck. Haley posted those words along with a photo of her 2 kids hugging and crying. Mom shared it, adding, "Some children don't deserve the love we spent our whole lives giving." Logan posted an old vacation photo of the family with the caption, "Miss when we still had a family." They never used my name. But it didn't take a genius to figure out who they were talking about. I read it all, then shut my phone. Every sentence echoed the same old pattern. I was the problem. The cold one. The traitor. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. The sender's name was a small law office in Spokane. Inside was an unofficial civil complaint. The family wanted to re-evaluate inheritance and property rights regarding the house on Summerhill Lane, claiming I had exploited financial interests unfairly in a family setting. I wasn't surprised. Louise, my lawyer, flipped through the photocopy and looked up. They'll lose. The co-ownership agreement, the financial statements, the transaction history, it's all airtight. I nodded. I don't need to win. I just need peace. Then I guess it's time for the next step, she said. And that very week, I transferred all my assets into a private trust under my name, managed by my attorney. There were no longer any apartments traceable to me. No more accounts tied to anything public. I changed my phone number. Deleted the family email. Left the family group chat on our messaging app. No one reached out again. The vague online posts stopped. Maybe they realized I wasn't watching anymore. Or maybe they'd found a new target to blame. I didn't know. And I no longer felt the need to know. Around that time, Jared reached out again. He sent an official invitation from the organization, along with a plane ticket to New York and the agenda for the upcoming conference on financial autonomy for grown women. I looked at the email, hesitated for a second, then clicked, I accept. The next morning, I ordered a new navy blue suit. The schedule was set. My keynote topic, redefining self-worth after being seen as a tool. Jared said the committee approved it the moment they read the title. The flight to New York was smooth. In the business class cabin, I opened my laptop and reviewed the draft of my speech. I wrote every sentence from my own experience, not representing anyone else. No apologies. No sugarcoating. Just the truth told in a calm, exact voice. I wrote about a woman who used to be the shadow in every family photo. About the money sent that was never mentioned again. About the first time she said no, and was labeled a traitor by her own family. I never used the word I in that speech, but every sentence was carved from my own bones. When the plane landed at JFK, I didn't feel afraid or nervous. I felt light. As if all the weight that had dragged behind me for years had finally let go. The hotel I stayed at was right next to Bryant Park. From my window, I could see women pushing strollers, elderly folks reading under the trees, students studying on park benches. Each of them living their own lives without needing anyone's permission. And I realized I was living mine. Not out of obligation. Not from fear. Not to meet anyone's expectations. Simply because I wanted to. And because I deserved to. I returned to Seattle on a chilly afternoon, the sky gray and hazy like it had been glazed over. The city was still as damp as always, but somehow, it felt oddly comforting this time. The cab stopped in front of my familiar building. I stepped out, dragging my small suitcase across the rain-speckled stone walkway. Every step felt weightless, as if each stone had shed the burden of old ties. The door to my apartment opened. Everything was still neat and in place just as I had left it. No mystery bags left outside. No pleading notes on the fridge. No calls during lunch with that familiar line, "Are you free right now?" Just me. And silence. I hung up my coat, made a cup of tea, and sat in the armchair by the window. The room was bathed in soft afternoon light, dancing across the pale gray walls I had chosen years ago in hope that one day, this place would truly feel like home. And now it did. No one had the right to enter without knocking. No one held a spare key to barge in as if I were an extension of their needs. On the wooden shelf by my desk, I'd placed a small glass frame. No picture inside, just a scratched old brass keychain. My mother used that keychain to come and go in my home whenever she pleased. At first, I thought it was a sign of closeness. Later, I realized it was a line that had been blurred for too long. Now, it sat quietly behind glass, beneath the label I printed and cut by hand. Boundaries must be drawn. From here on out, this is my home. I stared at that frame for a long while, not sad, not angry. Just a peaceful kind of stillness, like when you finally shut a door that's been creaking for too many years. My laptop powered on as I opened my work email. At the corner of the screen was a message marked "Important" from Jared's organization. The subject line, "Phoenix Scholarship, a support program for grown women returning to school." Below it was a newly designed logo in deep purple and silver, the colors of independence and renewal. My name was printed right at the top of the sponsor section, Eloan Jennings, mentor and inspiration. I didn't cry, but my nose stung for a moment. Maybe because I saw my name tied to something, not because someone needed me, not because someone lacked something, but because I had chosen it. Freely. Willingly. Independently. I thought of the women this scholarship might reach. The ones who once had to put their dreams on hold for kids, for husbands, for parents, for debt, for society. I thought of a younger version of me at 20, sitting in a cramped room full of bills and boxed-up dreams. If I could open just one new door for someone like her, then everything I had gone through would not be in vain. That evening, I made myself a simple dinner: pan-seared salmon, roasted potatoes, and a glass of red wine to close the day. I ate in silence. No one beside me, no screaming children, no one asking for anything. Just soft jazz from a small speaker and a strange, unfamiliar sense of fullness that came from within. I no longer called my mother every week. I stopped checking Haley and Logan's social media posts. I didn't need to know what they thought of me or how they spun their version of the story to the world. Because I had finally understood. Those who only love you when you're useful never really loved you at all. I didn't hate them. I just chose to stop living the life they had written for me. Sometimes in the morning I still make tea and sit on the balcony to watch the street below. And I wonder, if one day one of them knocked on my door, would I open it? I don't have an answer yet. But I do know one thing for sure. If they come, they'll have to knock. No one holds the keys to my life anymore. What do you think about my choice? If one day you realized you were only loved when you were needed, would you have the courage to stand up and draw your line? I know everyone's journey with family is different. It might be simple, it might be complicated. It might be filled with warmth, or it might be where the deepest wounds begin. I'm not sharing this story to complain. And I'm certainly not here to judge. I'm just asking a question that took me years to answer. Is love truly real? If it only exists under certain conditions? If you've ever felt like you had to carry more than your share just to be accepted? If you've been the one who gave up peace to keep the family calm? I hope you'll share your story in the comments. I'd really love to hear it. Sometimes just speaking the truth is already a kind of freedom. And if you want to hear more honest, heartfelt stories about family, belonging, and the quiet awakening of people who chose to reclaim their lives, don't forget to follow this channel. Because behind every door that closes, another one opens. And maybe, just maybe, the next story is waiting for you on the other side.